The pyramids were lit up to welcome world leaders to the UN Climate Summit in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, in what almost looked like an end-of-the-world trade show sponsored by Coca-Cola and other big corporations. This summit began as many others, with the dire warning that life on Earth will end if climate change isn't stopped.
The clock is ticking. We are in the fight of our lives, and we are losing. We are on a highway to climate hell with our foot still on the accelerator.
One has to wonder, however, whether this doomsday rhetoric can be trusted. After all, 50 years ago, the UN warned mankind had only 10 years to stop the catastrophe. 40 years ago, the UN said we have until the year 2000 to prevent the equivalent of a nuclear holocaust. And 15 years ago, the UN warned that if climate change wasn't stopped by 2012, it would be too late. The world has not only failed to end, CO2 emissions are 50% higher than they were 20 years ago. With even the UN now admitting its policies have failed, some want to throw even more money at the problem. After 26 previous summits and trillions spent on the climate, the UN still doesn't have a working blueprint to lower the Earth's temperature. For this 27th attempt, U.S. climate envoy John Kerry says what's needed are trillions of dollars more. There's also support for hundreds of billions in so-called loss and damage payments to poor nations, basically climate reparations. Joe Biden told this summit that the U.S. will become the world leader in fighting climate change. Young protesters kept interrupting the event, including Biden's speech, demanding more radical action be taken by world leaders to save the planet. Climate activist Greta Thunberg denounced this summit as a scam and greenwashing. That's when a company fakes its environmental commitment. But climate skeptic and author Mark Morano at this summit told us he saw more corporate sponsors than ever before.
We've been completely corporatized. The main partners this year are everyone from Microsoft, Google, to IBM, and all these big corporate conglomerates that come in. Meta is here, the parent company of Facebook.
Al Gore was there pushing his new Climate Trace Initiative, a global network that tracks down carbon emitters so they can be fined or shut down.
For any nation that requests our assistance, Climate Trace can provide all of the assistance necessary, a complete inventory of all of the emissions from every major point source in its territory every year for free.
Tracking every private entity to see how much CO2 with the explicit purpose of helping the United Nations enforce climate treaties. It's not far-fetched to think this climate trace CO2 monitoring will be following humans in monitoring us as well.
Not far-fetched at all, given that Google is one of Climate Trace's 6 funding organizations. Also, during the summit, clergymen held what was called the world's first multi-faith climate repentance ceremony to seek forgiveness for climate sins. Activists went up to Mount Sinai and smashed what were supposed to be the Climate 10 Commandments. But with the UN itself admitting failure, the biggest impact of climate policies has been a worldwide energy crisis through an over-reliance on green energy. And all the failed prophecies of doom over the years don't seem to matter.
If you're Al Gore, if you're John Kerry, if you're any climate activist, how do you walk this back? Okay, we've been doing this for 30 years, and these people have come out with the most dire warnings, by the way, none of which have turned out to be true. How do they ever walk it back? They can't. They just have to keep it going.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.